Welcome back to the Exit Only Theater podcast.
What up?
I feel like it's been forever. We're making this almost bi-weekly now. It's kind of crazy.
Man.
Things are picking up over here. It's a little crazy.
Yeah.
We're back and we're up to no good as always. I'm JP Leigh, and across from me,
the devil.
Or as everyone else knows him as
Adrian Alderete.
There you go.
Satan himself.
Oh, it's terrible.
On a budget.
We're in November now. We're in November now. No more scary stuff.
Can Satan work on a budget?
Can he?
No, not at all.
On that note, we are going to get into some October stuff to see sort of the month in review, the good, the bad, some of the ugly, the no-shows, kind of a little bit of everything.
Which actually, there's a lot of stuff about that.
There's a lot about that. People were not going to the movies. But we'll get to that. Let's jump into some of the latest news.
There's a group of news that I think that were kind of interesting from what's been happening mostly recently, actually.
Yeah, last couple days.
But I'll start off with this. The new trailer, well, actually the first trailer for Spike Lee's new joint, air quotes,
yes.
Came out. Chirac.
Mm-hmm.
And it came out. We all saw it. It's a heavily, awesomely, the cast is amazing. Like, you have John Cusack with Sam L. Jackson, Nick Cannon, holy crap! There's a lot of great Angela Bassett. Holy crap! Man.
There's a bunch of other characters and actors in there that I know I recognize, but I'm really bad with names, and I'm like, oh my god, they're in it.
Yeah.
I think what's really cool about this trailer, my first response to it, is how stylized how stylized Spike Lee still is, and how he's still using new mediums to be really, really over the top but still relevant, which is really cool. So I mean, if you want to launch into anything plot-wise, or if you just want to kind of give a brief overview.
Yeah, it just obviously it's going to be all for those of you that don't know, since Chicago is so heavily so heavily covered in the news based off the gun violence and the gang violence and everything like that. It's been dubbed Chirac, as in Chicago, Iraq. And
in and of itself is a very charged way to start.
It's a very interesting thing, just because. Being from Chicago, I'm glad that it's being that kind of topics being addressed on film, especially with a filmmaker as ballsy as Spike Lee is. A lot of people I know that claim to be good directors hate Spike Lee. They think he sucks.
Really?
But yeah, they do. For some reason, they don't like him. They're just like, oh, that guy's so overrated, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, it's all fun and games. I want to see you do a movie like Do the Right Thing.
Make a film that says something as big as those films say. And that's my question to you, someone who's from Chicago, who may not have lived, maybe didn't live in the exact neighborhoods that are discussed in this film, but you were around enough of it to see how it affected at least the rest of the environment around you. Are you worried that the film is just going to say something without necessarily wanting to try to address how to fix something? Do you think it's just going to incite, maybe not violence, but incite anger and incite some kind of emotional reaction from people in a negative way and not offer a solution? That's what I think people worry about.
I think you bring up a good point, just because it's a movie where you look at the trailer and even the film itself you can tell it's not necessarily directly addressing it, or stating it, saying, "Oh, gun violence. This is the problem." They did it in a way where it looks very, we discussed. It almost looks theater-like. It's actually based off the Greek comedy. I wish I could pronounce it. Lystrata.
I think that is how you pronounce it.
And Lystrata. It's one of those it's a Greek. It's such a Greek comedy where it's an old school kind of thing. It's that's kind of a ballsy move as a director and as a storyteller, because you're going to try to tell something in an really old-fashioned style.
Thematically, exactly.
So I'm I praise Spike Lee for taking the chance on it, but based off the trailer, it already seemed kind of wild. A lot of people, a lot of people that I know from back home, when we posted it on our Facebook page, there was a lot of negative reception to it. They're like, "Oh, this looks stupid."
People
whatever. But then again, though, those people, God bless them, they know who they are. Not the smartest
may not be the authority
people in the world, and at the same time. But I'm for something like this, you have to you want to take a chance. You don't want to make a movie that's going to be deadpan serious, or else you're going to lose your audience. Because that's what that was This is what Spike Lee does. He kind of, besides Malcolm X, he kind of. Even with Do the Right Thing, he did it in a way where it was very theater-like.
Yeah.
But he nailed it. And with this one, it's keep doing that. That you have to kind of dress it up in a way where the message goes subtly inside your head and it grows from there.
That's where I think the most effective movies are, the ones that entertain and say something. Yeah. And I'm very intrigued by where this could be going.
Yeah. It's exciting because I want to see something different, and it's been a while since we've seen something different from Spike Lee.
Yeah, I feel like it's been forever.
Yeah, I hope I want to see more stuff of his because he's a very it's an overused term now is provocative, but he's he's exactly that.
Absolutely.
Like, at least the most recent. Also, it's nice to know that I know somebody that was a camera operator on that.
Look at that.
Chris Rahano, if you're listening, I pray to God, hey, good job, dude.
Absolutely.
That was a nice trailer.
Especially the digital, this sort of the shot on digital. I'm kind of excited to hear what he has to say about that. Yeah. We should get him on.
Oh, if I could, I'll try. In other news, Warcraft is going to be released a poster earlier this week.
It's about time.
Released a teaser for the trailer that's airing this Friday.
Is it a teaser for a teaser?
It's a teaser for, I want to say it's a teaser for the first trailer. So I guess technically it's a teaser. Yeah. I think, but the thing is, I kind of wanted to talk about that. Obviously the teaser was what it was. It's a very brief thing, but it showed a lot of action and showed,
just a hint of what the technology is doing.
It's a hint of what the technology is doing because it's all going to be all CGI and all that stuff. But I wanted to ask, what would you need to see? Obviously, you and I never played World of Warcraft.
No, did not.
What would you want to see from this trailer to kind of make you want to go see it? Because this is a major, major production from Legendary.
For me, I've been the kind of person who has given emerging technologies a chance. I saw Polar Express. A lot of these films that kind of maybe were flawed maybe to be nice, they were flawed. A lot of dead eye going on. You couldn't really believe the characters, but you're like, oh, that looks like Tom Hanks. Yeah. I'm intrigued to see, like Beowulf. I'm intrigued to see what happens with this because of the amount of time that it's taken in the post-production side of things. That for me, when I think of Warcraft, or World of Warcraft, I think of aerial view, characters running around. Yeah. I don't. As long as it's more dynamic than that, I'm intrigued. Like if it captures the spirit of characters and things that you would imagine from like a Lord of the Rings or a Hobbit kind of thing, but does it in a new realm, I'm into it. I mean, I don't have to necessarily be like knee deep in the storylines or the lore surrounding it. If the teaser's any good, I'll go see it. Yeah,
that's the thing. Like for me, I really want this to be good. Like I remember when they announced, I want to say it was like around 2012 when they announced they were making it. They were shooting since 2013. It's been in post since then,
which is intriguing.
Which tells me it's like, look, they really want this to look good.
Time. Exactly.
And some of the still images that they've released along the way look terrific. Like they look great. Yep. The one thing is, like you said, I want a lot of ground view shots. Yeah. It won't work unless you're really uptight in the shot. You want to see something that looks amazing. Yep. And obviously the one that's always going to be compared to is Lord of the Rings. You don't want to go the Peter Jackson route where it's just like, oh God, let's just see what we could do with CGI. It's like, no, do it for a reason. Yeah, be absolutely. Have motive in what you want to do. And I hope they nail the story. And I also hope that I hope it looks awesome because one of my favorite actors is in it, Travis Fimmel, who's in Vikings. And I really want to see him break out because I would cast him in anything I would do because I think he's that good.
That's a cool vote of confidence. Yeah, that intrigues me because I don't really know much about the casting. So
yeah, he's the man, dude. He makes the show Vikings so cool. But I'm looking forward to it. What I want to see is just the intimacy. Yeah. I don't want to see action stuff. I know we're gonna get that. I want to see ogres making out. I want to see them be intimate. Like,
you really do want the emotional.
I really want it to see through. I'm like, I want to see two like ogres talking to each other, and I could buy that they're like, you can see the emotion coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were maybe not the whole time, but in moments of Avatar, I believed it. So I really want to see what, now that 4 or 5 years has gone by, what the technology can allow us to do. So, heck yeah. Very intrigued.
Next bit of news. Director Neil Blomkamp, for those of you that don't know, filmmaker of District 9. Woo! That's the Elysium. Woo-hoo. And then of course you got Chappie. Like it was
not a great track record. Yeah, as he progresses.
He hasn't had a great track record recently, but but he was originally tied to do the Alien sequel, Alien 5. But because Prometheus 2 and Ridley Scott has been in the forefront, and since The Martian came out, the studios have been like, hey, you know what? Let's give Ridley Scott, the proven filmmaker, the okay to do Prometheus 2, and then we'll wait on Alien 5. But recently, Neil Blomkamp put out a tweet saying officially that Alien is kinda holding / pending because of Prometheus 2. So I shall be working on other things as much as I love the Xeno and Lieutenant Ripley. Okay. So basically, after hearing that tweet, does that mean that this is the nail in the coffin for the Alien 5 sequel, at least with Neil Blomkamp?
It could be. I'm not worried that if they're pausing it indefinitely, that it wouldn't happen. I feel like it could still happen.
Yeah.
I just feel like the fact that Ridley Scott has reasserted himself again as a competent and, entertaining director, which I feel like he hit a slump there for a while.
Yeah.
It only makes sense to let him allow him to have his stories run their course.
Yeah.
Prometheus was good enough to suggest the sequel or wherever the hell the storyline is going.
Yeah.
The next Prometheus film. That was we already warranted that. So the fact that The Martian has done so well, just let him do it. Let him have the reins, and then Neil can do it when he wants to. I still want to see what he does with the fifth Alien film. I'm okay to wait a few years too. I'm not dying to see it.
Yeah, I think Neil Blomkamp needs to kind of get back on the training wheels a little bit and kind of get back to the drawing board before you could take something on where there's going to be even more pressure on him because of the name of Alien 5.
Absolutely.
And the other reason, even with Ridley Scott or not, I think what's really cool and the reason I'd rather see a Prometheus 2 other than instead of an Alien 5 is because we're expanding the Alien quote-unquote universe.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer, Ridley Scott's been on record saying, we're not going to be going into the in-depth about the xenomorphs anymore. The alien with the head tongue.
He's been very contradictory in a few interviews, but still, that's the thing, is the themes could go in any direction.
Yeah. And it sounds like he wants to take it, and he wants to take it to a place that's different. He says, I want to look into, who made us, and then where does that lead us after that? So there's, a legitimate philosophical question that he wants to answer. Yep. And to me, as a viewer that really loved Prometheus,
me too.
That's what I love, because that movie asked a lot of questions that I want more. Eventually, I want more questions. I don't need answers. I want more questions.
That's true. That's one of the Prometheus, and we've talked about this before. It's one of the first films where they asked more questions than they answered.
Yeah.
And being left with those question marks was okay with me, and it made me want to see more of the films. And if the next film leads to more questions, like you said, I'm okay with that too. Yeah. I don't need things from the Alien franchise that we know and love. Yeah. I think that was already handled, so I'm okay with it pausing. I'm okay. Definitely or otherwise, I'm okay.
I don't need a hip hop dancing robot to cross over with my xenomorphs.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
I want to see new characters.
No more chappies.
Yeah, I'm good.
Too many mullets in that movie. Anyway, moving on.
There's no such thing as too many mullets.
Sure. Mr. 80s.
There was no transition I was trying to make from there.
Nope.
All right. The ocean. Speaking of potential reboots or prequels or whatnot.
Look at that. You did good, kid.
Transition engaged. All right. There's been reported that an all-female Ocean's 11 is in the works, being led by Sandra Bullock and directed by the Hunger Games' Gary Ross. Now, this has been in the works with the heads of George Clooney and even Steven Soderbergh, who were obviously the lead actor and the director for the original Ocean's 11 trilogy. Now, since the one interesting bit of news is not only are they making an Ocean's 11 reboot, it's supposed to be an all-women's Ocean's 11 reboot. My question to you,
yes,
as a woman,
yes,
does this that you are the authority of women on this table? As much as I'd like to disagree, but yes, I guess yay, is this good news? And yeah, what are your thoughts on it? When you heard this news, what did you think?
I'm conflicted, and it's because I had two simultaneous reactions. Yeah. First of which, I love Sandra Bullock, just because she's all around awesome. I feel like she seems like a perfectly wonderful person in her private life, but she's also an awesome actress. So kind of goes hand in hand. But at the same time, as much as I'm excited to see what they do with her being the charismatic, I assume to be George Clooney-esque role, I'm also conflicted by how it feels sort of pandering to keep making these sort of just generic. Maybe it's not going to be generic. I don't know. I can't speak to the screenplay, but it seems very on its face simplistic and a little too simplified to just be we're going to do this with women so that the ladies come out and watch the movies. Yeah. I feel less pandered to watching Magic Mike than I do when I know that these are being cast. And I don't know what that says about me, but
no, you have an interesting. No, that's a good point, because I saw Magic Mike too.
You did. I dragged you to the theater,
and we
did it all for the research.
And you know what? I kid you not. Like I said before, it was a good movie.
It was a good film.
It was a sound movie. You get what they were trying to do. As stupid as the guy characters were, it made sense what they were trying to do. It was a simple mission, quote unquote. But going alongside with this, I remember when I first saw it, I was like, hell yeah, that's kind of cool. But then the more I thought about it, I sat and started thinking the same thing. I'm like, why did you have to attach the Ocean's 11 reboot to it? Why not just call it, hey, we're making an all-female Ocean's 11 style.
Just a heist film in general.
A heist film in general. Or like we were talking just before we kicked off the show, was why not have a Dirty Dozen style movie being led by a woman like Sandra Bullock.
But with multiple
men and women. I think that would be cool because it's no longer about it's a gender this or gender that. It's about
such a bigger statement. That would make such a bigger statement, and it would just. I mean, it would say something without distracting from what could potentially be a really good film. Like having all women in the cast just feel, especially if you're doing an exact replica of Ocean's 11. It just. I don't like the idea. I don't like the idea of finding just 11 random women to fill the role. It just feels disingenuous to me.
Okay. How about this? This is the one question I'll pose to you.
Okay.
Who would they need to cast to go opposite of Sandra Bullock to be on this quote unquote team to make you say, okay, maybe I'll just give it a shot at watching it?
That's a really good question because at first when I forgot Sandra Bullock was cast, and I thought of this question when I was brainstorming earlier this week, I was like, I would have loved to see Tina Fey and Amy Poehler do it. But then I'm like, they're doing so many films together and they've done so many things together that that's just kind of a used up plot point, I guess, at this point.
Yeah.
I feel like someone in the vein of an Emily Blunt or, you know, she's like my top actress. But someone who is also a serious actress who can turn it on a dime to being sort of charismatic and funny is why Ocean's 11 worked. Because you're like, oh my god, it's George Clooney, oh my god, it's Brad Pitt. And they have, you know, the charisma and sort of sometimes the sarcasm to pull those roles off.
Yeah.
It would need to be someone like that, who you see more as a serious actress, who can kind of work it in. Maybe, I can't think of any blonde actresses that I, you know, going just on look, being like a very callous producer, be like, let's have a blonde in the role, but I'm trying to think now. I don't know. Do you have any in mind?
I have a couple in mind. They're very random, and it'd be interesting to see how they go off. Like, this actress has, like, gone toe-to-toe with Meryl Streep and whatnot. I think having somebody like, I just had her name. Oh my god, it was on the tip of my tongue. Viola Davis. There you go. I would like to see Viola Davis and Cate Blanchett in this movie.
That would be so intense and awesome at the same time.
Because the reason I say those two names is because. Not because they would go off of Sandra Bullock, but because they would go off of each other. Cate Blanchett being, I don't want her to change her accent. I want her to be. Yeah. I would want her to be somebody who's kind of like, not necessarily in the Brad Pitt role, but someone who's kind of like in, like the Don Cheadle-esque role, where she's kind of like the wild card kind of person.
Especially plugging her in such a, not a minor role, but such a fun supporting role for her would be a cool challenge. Like my favorite role she's ever had was in Hot Fuzz. It was such a funny cameo, and all you saw were her eyes, and she was hilarious doing that. Yeah. Could you imagine her being like in a bunker drilling a hole and having to like just have an attitude the whole time?
And you know what? You have to kind of like, and just to throw like a side character in there to be the muscle, you have to have Ronda Rousey in there.
Oh, you have to. Especially now, she's been in everything.
And I think it'd be a nice little joke where like every time she would try to talk, they would just say, just shut up.
Yeah.
Like let us do the work. And I think that'd be a nice little joke. But no, that for me that would be intriguing where the group would have to be so out of place.
Yeah.
Where randomly Kristen Stewart would show up. I wouldn't cast her in it, but I'm just saying like it would have to be like the most weird group ever because it's like literally this is a ragtag group that pull off an awesome mission. But at the same time, like going back to it, it's like that's a lot of ifs. Like I'd rather just make a heist movie. Don't make an all-female, yay.
Right.
You know, don't make this Supergirl. Like, you know what I mean? Like I watch Supergirl. But at the same time, like I know what they're like. You could see
you're not the demographic.
Yeah, I'm not the demographic. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, I get what you're trying to do.
Slow your roll.
Let's make this a little bit more not adult, but let's make it a little bit more mature. Like let's treat the audience a little bit better than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't insult our intelligence.
But that is all the news we have for this week.
Absolutely.
I hope you guys enjoyed. Please stay tuned to our Twitter page and our Facebook page. We'll have more stuff for you. Fantastic Beasts and all that stuff are releasing images. Suicide Squad had covers. They look cool. I may have hung them up on my wall. Especially the Harley Quinn one. You know. Yeah, but no, that's all the news. I'll hand it off to you to do your awesome thing.
All right, let's transition over to sort of our October in review. So whether it's Halloween or Oscar contenders, October offers sort of an intriguing transition from sort of the blockbuster stuff that we know and love in the summer to the more, Oscar Beatty kind of... Sounds like a cool name. Sounds like Warren Beatty's brother, Oscar.
Oscar Beatty.
Oscar Beatty.
In a world where all movies were not funny.
See, awesome. I just derail everything when I open my mouth. But it got us to thinking.
I was gonna keep going.
No. I heard you forming the word, and I was like, stop.
I'm gonna create an alter ego called Oscar Beatty.
We've just created a character.
Hello,
stay tuned for that.
Oscar Beatty's the name.
But Oscar Beatty aside, it got us thinking. Where the hell was everybody in October? Like, that to me, aside from all the films that have come out, other than The Martian, no one went to the movies in October, and the numbers reflected. I mean, the second biggest blockbuster of the October month was Goosebumps.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what
Who would have saw that?
What happened? Do you have a hypothesis as to what went on there?
My gut thing is look, The Martian came out October 2nd, so it was right when the month kicked off.
Yeah.
And I think audiences, as the movie started coming out after The Martian, there was a lot of meh kind of movies. Like Goosebumps, yeah. Like, it was, obviously it was something that was trying to grab onto an audience like us, that was like, that we remember the kids show, remember the books.
That movie's gonna have staying power for, like, Blu-ray sales.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You
go to a movie like The Walk, for instance, that came out also on October 2nd.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And it's like, like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, oh man, Robert Zemeckis, you have something where the CGI looks amazing, the trailers looked amazing, but again, it was like, one little review came out, and it's just like, I guess I'm okay with it.
It's not even in the top 20 of box office sales.
No, and like you keep going down the line of what came out, like Pan. That's obviously like the big like that
was supposed to be the
temple.
Yep.
Yeah, and that one bombed terribly, and I think that was because of marketing.
Agreed.
And you keep going. Like, obviously, Steve Jobs. You go to like Gem and the Holograms, Crimson Peak. You know, the list keeps going.
I feel like it's a dangerous combination of, and I'm going to sound like Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park by saying this, but it's this weird thing that, like, a few of the films that came out in October were made just because they could, instead of figuring out whether or not they should. Like, should we have made a movie about, like, the Hook origin story for Peter Pan? Like, do we need that? I don't know.
Was anybody asking for it?
No one was asking for the Peter Pan reboot 10 years ago, so why would they need it now? Like, who necessarily needed an incorrectly marketed Crimson Peak, which I liked as a gothic romance, but when I left the movie, felt cheated because I thought it was a horror film.
Yes.
So it's like there's a combination of, like, films being made for, like, weird unknown reasons, and marketers not knowing how to market the films that they don't even think the people who made them can believe in a lot of the time. It's a really weird month.
It was very strange because you want to see. There are a lot of movies that you typically see, and it's not a different kind of year either.
No,
it's like typically you see a movie like a Crimson Peak, where a quote unquote like a more serious horror movie, coincidentally, even though it wasn't. You watch something like a biopic, Steve Jobs, about a mythical guy that helped influence a lot of the stuff that we do today.
Yep.
A kids movie like Pan, action. Well, I wouldn't call The Martian an action movie, but like a space adventure action movie. No,
but you have this full array of genres, and only one of them really did well. It's really weird.
And I think it goes to the power, and I believe, like, this is just my opinion. This is unfounded. There's no no educated basis. My theory is that people are so heavily invested into the score that you get on Rotten Tomatoes. For instance, if you get a score that's like 70%, you're probably not going to spend money on that movie. And since movie theaters now are a little bit more expensive, like in typical theaters, like in Chicago, I could tell you right now, like a movie theater, if you go on a random day, $12. Like, if you're someone who's like, if you're going like a high school student or something like that, $12 is like, am I gonna go hang out with my friends at, let's say, a bowling alley, or am I gonna?
Hours,
because the movie theater isn't necessarily the place to be anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it's true.
When you see all that, you're looking at all these movies, like, well, I heard The Martian was really good. Let's go watch The Martian.
There's an underappreciated value to word of mouth.
Yeah.
And staying power. I mean, The Martian came out, what did you say, 4 weeks ago? It was top the box office again this past weekend.
It opened the month on top, and it closed out the month on top, because there's only one movie that was really good, but according to everybody, it was The Martian.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. It was a good, fun movie.
It was a good movie. I'm glad you said it, because that's the thing, like, there was nothing. And I know it's good. A lot of people that I talk to outside of this room are going to be like, honestly, it was a good movie. Yeah. I'm surprised about the hype it was. Like, I'm glad it's good. I love Ridley Scott, but I'm surprised at how the reaction that it's getting. Where it's like I heard some people mentioning that, oh, Ridley Scott is back, all this stuff. I'm like, look, he nailed it.
Which I don't disagree. He's definitely made a film that you can say that about. Yeah. But it is weird because it's not a great movie.
No, that's why. Like I remember when we did the review. Like I remember your reactions. I remember you guys were like, "Well, why are you playing it down?" And I was just like, "I don't know. I'm just the hipster in me. It was just like, why does everybody like it? I'm trying to curious as to why people like it."
It's true, and it's the first time I'd seen you really struggle with like I don't know why I have that like. You definitely understand that it's a good film, but you also understand that it's not a great film, but the reaction as if it is confusing.
It's very confusing. It's like, did I miss something?
Yeah,
like,
and we didn't. Like, no. We both appreciated the film at, I think, the exact same level. I was just willing to accept that, like, the average moviegoer is going to think that that's, like, a great film, which is fine. And I think it was much more accurate as a sci-fi film than most are, so it was kind of refreshing. But I guess as a short transition to that, The Martian right now, as of today, has made as of today, of course, it is the whole month of October, so it's already passed, $185 million domestically, with I believe over 200 million worldwide.
Man.
So I mean it's made 4 times its $100+ million budget. So is it fair to say that Matt Damon is a bona fide superstar? Like, is he the reason why people want to see that movie, or is it more you know what,
you have to look at it for what it is, and you have to say yes, because when you see the marketing campaign, it wasn't that great either. No. It's like you just like The Martian. It has Matt Damon's face on it.
Just bring him home.
And I'm just like, yeah, okay. And I thought about it for a while, and like I did think about this for like today, and I thought, I'm like, okay, this is Jason Bourne, and all this stuff. Maybe people really did. Obviously, those did successful, but maybe people really like seeing him in situations and stuff, and like an actionish movie. Yeah. People wanted to see that, and people didn't go to the movie theater to watch Ridley Scott. Nobody, like, with all due respect, the general audience doesn't do that.
No, and people who do know him were tentative at best, so it's kind of.
And then like the average moviegoer is not going to sit there and say, "Oh, he was in Interstellar, so there's like Interstellar prequel." That was like
that was us.
All the movie geeks were told like, "Oh man, this better work." We were the most skeptical. Yeah. Everybody was just like I remember the first night we were there, I had to save seats. Like for you guys.
It was ridiculous. It was how crowded it was.
And like I imagine it's been packed ever since. And it's all fun and games till November shows up. The James Bond and all that stuff.
Everyone's confused.
Man, it's strange because it goes to show you that you can't predict, like outside of Star Wars and maybe the Marvel movies, you can't predict what an audience is going to go see.
No, you really can't.
You can't.
And I don't want to underestimate the Star Wars effect as well. Like toward the latter half of the month, people dropped an obscene amount of money on movie tickets. Like I know a buddy of ours helped us buy our tickets because he was waiting,
God
on
bless
the line,
that guy.
On the proverbial digital line for 30 minutes, and for 4 tickets he dropped $70. Yeah. And if people are spending that money, even if they're not going to the theater, they've spent it, and they're like, "Well, I don't have to go. I saw The Martian. I'm fine." Yeah. So like the last 2 weeks of the October box office, no one went to see anything because it was like, "Well, we bought our tickets." Yeah,
because like 6 million. There was 6 million people. Or was it $6 million or 6 million people bought tickets?
I think it was $6 million on the first night, which I mean, for like quote unquote essentially midnight screenings is ridiculous. Yeah. And then Fandango was crashing, and it was absurd. So it might be.
That's an interesting point because that trailer came out on a Monday night.
Yeah.
A Monday Night Football.
2 weeks ago.
So whatever, I have the date, but I have no idea what was playing exactly that week. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure that definitely.
I think it was Crimson Peak released the weekend of the release, because then I think 2 days later is when it was Back to the Future Day. Yeah. Which would provide a good transition.
Transition engaged.
To the Back to the Future Day. So we want to know, we went to the triple feature in theaters,
which was awesome,
which was fantastic, and actually Back to the Future ended the month of October as the 17th highest grossing film.
What was number 18? Just curious.
Number 18 was Goodbye Mr. Loser.
What was number 19? Just curious.
Actually, I don't recognize it. In truth, Sing is Bling is number 20. Wow. But actually, the one right above it was Gem and the Holocaust, which made 2.1.
The holograms. Gem and the Holocaust.
Holy shit. That would have been bad. Gem and the Hologram. But Back to the Future Day, and it's funny because
starring Oscar Beatty.
Good save. Not by me, by him. But Back to the Future Day, it's listed here as the day because it's grossing all 3 of the films combined. Yeah. I believe it said almost 1,800 theaters made $1.65 million. That's pretty good at discounted tickets. So you have to know it was $5.
And there were 3 movies, so like people went to see that
8 hours in
just as much as they wanted to see just one Gem in the Holocaust, Gem in the Holograms.
See, no, we don't chuckle about that. But it's just a mistake.
I just think I remember we jokingly said this like that at work today. We're like, what was the best movie in October? I'm like, Back to the Future.
Honestly,
that was my favorite. That was one of my like. It was fun to see that movie in theaters.
For the experience, I will agree with you. I think obviously there were 1 to 2 better films that came out in October. But I had the most fun in October when I went to see that with you guys. Yeah,
that was nice. It was nice to go and get that retro feel, kind of saying, man, that like it's one thing to see a movie at home and be like, that must have been a great theater experience. But then you get the theater experience on that massive screen that we saw.
We were way too close to the screen.
It was, my head hurt after a while, but I don't care.
I was dizzy as hell until like the next day. But it was great because there were people in the audience that were 10 and 11 years old who were, not born, they were born 10 years ago, let alone 25 years ago when the last one came out. But at the same time, you were with, I was sitting right next to, a 60-year-old lady who probably was there when the movies came out, taking her kids in the 80s. Man. I was like, this is awesome. It's just a cool mix of people. And I hope you guys got to check it out.
And I'll say this, if you guys, for you guys listening, if there's ever an opportunity like that, a nostalgic moment to go see a movie that's having an anniversary and they're having, a run like that, go take your friends. Go do it. It's fun. Yeah. It's one of those things where not only is it fun because you're doing it with your friends, but you're doing it with a group of people that are equally as passionate. For instance, with James Bond, obviously they're not doing it, but imagine if they had a run of James Bond movies.
It would be fantastic.
It would be pretty cool.
The characters that came out of the woodwork for that would be fantastic.
It would be awesome.
Oh.
And Star Wars is doing the whole marathon thing. I would love to do that.
I don't know if
as long as I can skip the prequels.
As long as I can skip the prequels. I'll join in at New Hope.
I'll come in for the Darth Maul fight, leave. Just go to sleep, wake up.
Literally leave for 2 and 3. Maybe the lava sequence with Hugh McGregor fighting him. Maybe.
No.
Yeah. Then I'm out. I'm out.
Speaking of Star Wars.
Okay, so I have this little setup real quick. So the Star Wars The Force Awakens trailer is to movie nerds what Adele is to lonely, heartbroken women. An obsession that requires multiple plays, breaking records, and leaving each asking, where have you been all these years? So I want to ask... I guess just in general, since we already talked about the trailer, has there been new updates? I know we have some news about posters and things like that. Is there anything that you'd like to address since we haven't talked about it in 2 weeks? I feel like you're bursting at the seams to talk about it. So I'm giving you the floor, sir.
I'd like to begin by saying, as a single man, it is very similar to listening to Adele. Let's just say there have been many cold showers and lonely nights to Adele.
Someone's going to set the Star Wars trailer to the Adele song. Someone's going to make it work.
Let's just say I saw both of them at the same time. Maybe I'm already listening to Adele right now.
It's stuck in my head.
Hello. No, as far as any updates with Star Wars goes, there was news from J.J. Abrams because a lot of people were noticing that one in the poster and in the trailer, no Luke.
Yep.
So he went on record saying, that's no accident.
Clearly, that's no accident.
So obviously they're holding something back, and a lot of theories going around is that he's not going to appear in the movie until the very end in a very big moment. So I'm totally down with that. I'm like, you know what?
Is that speculation or is that sort of confirmed?
That's speculation.
Okay.
But I could assume it's confirming because if you're not putting him in the poster, it means he's not necessarily the biggest part of the not the story, but his character isn't going to be in the film predominantly.
Present a lot. Yeah.
His name is going to be floated around. You're not going to see Kaiser Soze on the poster of Usual Suspects 2 unless he's finally revealed as Kaiser Soze. Technically, you know what I mean? But as far as other news goes, there was a book that was supposed to be coming out, a Star Wars art, The Force Awakens concept art book that you see from many movies that come out. It was supposed to be released, I believe, the week that the movie was supposed to come out.
Okay.
They pushed it back because they didn't want to reveal any spoilers.
Ooh.
So that means that J.J. Abrams is doing what J.J. Abrams does best. Being a paranoid jerk.
Hide things.
Yes.
Which sets him up to fail because people like you who have high expectations for him, which you should, are left feeling let down by Super 8 and others.
I'm not gonna hate on him yet, but it's coming. It's this is the thing. It just
that force is awakening.
Yeah. Yeah, it shook me down, did you, lady? But no, as far as news goes, that's pretty much all that's going on right now. Obviously, right now, Rogue One is still shooting and all that stuff, but there have been no major news.
Cool.
Until we get some major news, I'll let you guys know. Stay tuned to the Twitter page and the Facebook page.
Battlefront comes out November 17th.
Yes, Battlefront will definitely have some clues there. The Battle of Jakku is on there.
The freaking graphics on that looking
we might just go over to our buddy Sean's house and just watch it.
I'll just watch it. I don't need to play it.
I've done that before. I'm just like, do what you do best, man. Sit in your beanbag and
just do your thing.
Like, you know, eat chips out of wherever you eat chips out of. I don't want to know.
They're like, what the heck are you guys telling about? Oh, I honestly, like, when we bought BioShock Infinite, I did the same thing. I didn't play. I just watched Jonathan play it for like 4 hours at a time.
It's very cinematic sometimes.
Yeah, these video games are getting pretty intense.
Oh, they're awesome. But yes, stay tuned for more Star Wars news.
Absolutely. Which brings us to sort of the culmination of the evening is the October roundup of I would say arguably the 2 best films of the month. We can talk about...
It's our first checkpoint.
Exactly. Let's just do sort of an update on we could talk a little about Crimson Peak and I guess The Martian maybe getting some buzz for more technical and stylized awards, but we've talked about them throughout the episode, so I feel like we should really focus at least a few minutes on Bridge of Spies and Steve Jobs.
The Oscar checkpoint. October's done.
Exactly. And I feel like both of them have weird parallels that I feel like are worth addressing, and maybe we can just see, like, neither of us have talked about either film in detail with one another. So
especially Bridge of Spies.
Particularly Bridge of Spies. Like, we weren't even sure, we didn't even get to see either of them together. No. It was sort of just like, go see them before the end of the month so we can talk about them.
Yeah.
So that being said, where do we want to start? Do we want to start with just the comparison of the two? Do we want to maybe jump into a little bit of each film?
I guess the first question to ask is, which one did you like better? Like if you were to put one or the other, whether it be Steve Jobs or Bridge of Spies. I want to say Bridge of Spies so bad.
You can see he's getting cross-eyed trying to just focus on the word spies.
Bridge of Spies. Yeah. But to answer the question, like, what do you think? Did you like Steve Jobs more? Just as far as entertaining and thought-provoking film, what was your favorite one?
I honestly think as a thematic film, Bridge of Spies does have a lot of parallels to today's culture and, you know, the Patriot Act and the way that we look at terrorism as they're not criminals, it's sort of war crimes, and the way that we address things in terrorism the way that we address a lot of the Cold War topics. So I like the parallel between the two. The writing was spot on to address both, you know, that parallel without being heavy-handed, which some films can be. That being said, for me, as someone who really likes films that are internal and about specific, like, if it's about striving for greatness or if it's about reaching one's potential, like, I think those themes are really interesting in films. That's why I loved Birdman. Yeah. I liked Steve Jobs more.
Really?
Just a little bit more.
Wow, I didn't expect that at all. You're a Spielberg person.
I am a huge Spielberg person, and I don't give Danny Boyle as much. I kind of give him a hard time because I actually have almost nothing to say about him in this because I don't think it has anything.
I'm the opposite.
I don't think it has anything to do with him. I don't think that film succeeds because of him. I think it's
true.
I think he got out of the way enough for it to sing.
Yeah.
Aside from the few times where, like, font and video would appear on the wall, I'm like, get out of the way, Danny. Get out of the way. Like, don't do that.
Yeah.
But that being said, I know that I think genuinely Bridge of Spies is a better film.
Yeah.
I liked Steve Jobs a little bit more.
Yeah. Which
is weird. I don't know why I've come to terms with that, but what about you?
Yeah, I personally, like, after watching both, I would say I like Bridge of Spies more.
Okay.
And I wasn't, like, you heard me when we were like, do you want to go watch them? I'm like, man, I don't know. It looks really...
Yeah, you were a little skeptical. Yeah, it's a little long, too, but...
And I was very hyped for Steve Jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I dug Steve Jobs. Thought it was a good movie.
Yeah.
Good. You know, I wanted to like it more, but I think based off the story they gave us, like the one mistake I always try to make is always like, well, what could have they done better from a story perspective? I'm like, I'm not gonna guess for them. They gave us what they gave us. Based on what they gave us, I was there was not a sense of let down from Steve Jobs, but it was just like, that was good. Yeah. You know, I think Michael Fassbender was awesome. I think everybody acting in it was awesome. I think the structure of it and the way they executed it was awesome.
Very ambitious.
But it was a movie where I feel like we didn't get enough. You know what I mean? Where it was a very interesting play put on film.
Yeah.
And that's not even a knock.
No, it's essentially what it was.
Yeah. But I don't think it really it didn't really like address enough about Steve Jobs, even hinting at the kind of guy he was. It was just mostly like, let's put him in these situations, see him kind of go. And I know they wanted to use that as a way of kind of like dressing his personality.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was just like, I really liked the side characters more than I liked him. Not necessarily from a personality perspective, but I just felt like in development.
Yeah. I think that's probably why I liked the film as much as I did, because... And this is because I've also read a lot about what Aaron Sorkin has to say about it, and he's a little bit of an egomaniac writing about an egomaniac, which is kind of interesting to see the parallels that you could pull from how it looks like Aaron Sorkin has built and destroyed some of his own work relationships. But I think it lends itself to writing a really strong script in that he's allowing these characters to exist independent of being real people. Yeah. Which is kind of, I mean, Bridge of Spies probably did the same thing, but there's enough time between, where that happened in the 50s and 60s versus now that there aren't enough people to refute it. Whereas Steve Jobs has been sort of immortalized in the last few years, and there are people still around, and people who are alive today who are featured in this film who may have something to say otherwise about it. So it makes it very conflicting, but if you walk into that film and you look at the title of Steve Jobs with, quote, air quotes, and go into it as sort of, it's an examination of a Steve Jobs-like character, I think it's an incredible, examination of an ego and what's truth versus fact, because I don't know, I liked that a lot about that film.
And not to, break away from what I just promised I wouldn't do, but I wish they wouldn't call this Steve Jobs.
That probably is the reason why it didn't do as well in the box office, because people didn't want to see that, so that's what they assumed it was about, and if people really got their butts into the theater and actually saw it, they probably would have liked it more than the
because whenever you name something directly off the person it's supposed to be based off of, you're expecting biopic, and it wasn't a biopic at all.
No, and
I'm glad it wasn't. But at the same time, it's like you get a movie like Milk, it's about Harvey Milk. You get a movie about you could go on and on. But going away from why I picked Bridge of Spies better, because it surprised the hell out of me. Because, and I know we'll eventually get into it, but overall, the writing, the fact that it was written by the Coen brothers, and in fact it didn't feel like sound like a Coen brothers movie was amazing. I thought the character that the Russian quote unquote terrorist or spy, they made him out to be this guy that was just you kind of wanted to root for him. You're like, I hope, man, this guy, you could tell, was just doing what he thought was maybe the right thing, or he was forced to do.
The subtleties of that and making it. There's so many people nowadays that would be like the hecklers who are like, why aren't we hanging him? Why aren't that is such a current theme, and it's so difficult for people to see bad guys as human beings too. That you're right. That's probably one of the strongest themes.
My favorite part of the movie, obviously, was not obviously. I don't know why I said that, but my favorite part of the movie was, I would say, the first hour. The first hour when you see Tom Hanks's character struggle, not necessarily struggling, but debating with himself, saying. And without even having a conversation with himself, you could tell, you could see it on his face, where he knew that he had to do his job. Yep. But even though it seemed like he knows that he's pretty much representing a terrorist. Yeah. And he still did his job. And I found that when his family told him not to, when his fellow coworkers said, "Look, just serve as the dude," and whatever. And no one really ever saw the kind of leverage you could create by saving this guy and seeing what in case something happened. He saw so far down the road that you're like, holy crap, this guy's really interesting. And then when they brought him back in, you're like, okay, I want to see him go even further. Yeah. And obviously that kind of lends itself to the true story of the character, where because the government wanted to see him to keep going further. Yeah. Like, hey man, go to the Bay of Pigs. See what you can do. And
it's and saving thousands of lives.
It's amazing. It's an amazing story, and I think that it was. I just think from a story perspective, off what they presented to us, I think Bridge of Spies was so much more compelling, and that's why I liked it.
I don't disagree. I think that it definitely.
There's no loser here. That's the thing.
No, there isn't, and I'm glad that we both just naturally picked either side of the argument, because I feel like we would have had a hard time being like, okay, well, I want to talk about Bridge of Spies. It ends up working out really well where. I don't disagree with everything you're saying. Which is weird to argue against, but I'm glad you picked that one.
All right, but where would you go as far as let's compare the directors. You said it yourself, you hinted at it, where it's Steve Jobs was a good film, but Danny Boyle was kind of just there to make sure everything just got on film.
I think Danny Boyle gets out of the way where Steven Spielberg keeps the sentimentality of a Coen Brothers script in check. You know what I mean? I feel like he
injected heart into that bad boy.
I know it's a cliche, good at it. But that's his best attribute. He's
so good at bringing, making, really putting a magnifying glass on what it means to be human. Where there's the conflict of doing something that is right and doing something that is, I guess, correct, if that makes sense. Yeah. Where something's the right thing is to do, for instance, in this case of Bridge of Spies, it's the right thing to do is to serve this person to the full extent of
that is patriotic. That's it says it in the Constitution.
The correct thing to do is look, this guy's a terrorist.
Let him rob away.
This guy deserves to be hanged.
Absolutely.
But when you put it like that, originally when I first saw him, Danny Boyle did a good job, but then you're right, you watch that.
He gets out of his own way and lets the writing tell the story.
And there was pretty much just let these actors act.
Yeah.
Let's walk with them in the hallways. Mm-hmm. Let's see this daughter. That was my favorite part of the story.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. You're right. Steven Spielberg, I think, take the head off to him. If this was like either or, pick Spielberg.
I would give Spielberg the edge on this one. I feel like more of his style suits why the story worked.
Even though, like, Danny Boyle, this is probably like his first legit American film. Like, when you watch any of his movies, this is not really a style.
127 hours, maybe?
127 hours was different, but it was a one-person thing, which is not very American at all.
And I will give him that. He's very good at creating intimate moments. Like, he did that really well with Trainspotting. There are moments in Slumdog, for all its faults, that I really do care about the one or two people in the scene.
Yeah.
And just letting the scenes develop in Steve Jobs is why it works.
Yeah.
It's so intimate, you almost feel like you're eavesdropping on them, which is awesome. But I think we've talked about the writing enough to say that it's super surprising to see the Coen brothers at least co-write. I believe Matt Sharman was also another writer on the script, so he might have lent a little bit to the plot. And Aaron Sorkin, of course, I mean, his voice is all over that film.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, who do you give the edge to? The guys who can manage to craft something really well done without getting in the way, or someone who's like, I'm going to write about an egomaniac, I might as well just let my peacock feathers fly. Like, who do you give the edge to in that?
I think you have to give the edge to. I think you have to give, and when I say this, I know it's going to be like more towards the Spielbergian influence, but it means a lot as a writer to where how can I write something about a great story and not get in my own way?
Yeah.
And I think Aaron Sorkin, he doesn't necessarily do that, but it's becoming almost kind of comical. Like, there have been videos, even before this was made, like when The Social Network came out, they're like, here, how can you tell if you're watching a Sorkin movie or TV show? It's like, he's walking through the hallways. He says the cliches. And it's like, yeah, that's, look, he's excellent. I love, like, Moneyball. He wrote Moneyball. And I think Moneyball is terrific. That's one of, like, the smartest sports movies. And it's not even a sports movie.
It really isn't. It just happens to have baseball in it, yeah.
But at the same time, it's like the Coen brothers. You watch a Coen brothers movie, you're watching a Coen brothers movie. It's like the dialogue and everything. It's so sharp and it's awesome.
Yep.
But with this one, you never once, if you never told me it was the Coen brothers that wrote it, I would never know. And they still nailed the story. And that, to me, I think is a bigger feat. And I think that deserves awards recognition because of that.
I agree, and it's the same way that I feel like when film editors are recognized, it's because they get the emotion and the flow of a film without being noticed. And that's when, if you're noticed as an editor, you're doing your job incorrectly. So I feel like that's the same thing with writing. It's just earlier in the process.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Coen brothers, there's a particular moment in the film that you can feel them in it, and it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Like when he keeps saying, like, aren't you worried? And he's like, would it help? And just that little, like, joke that keeps running through is something I would have felt in Fargo. Just, like, a subtle, like, whatever they're saying is kind of incredibly depressing when you think about it. But he's like, why worry about it? Like, it's just it's a Coenism that I loved.
And there was an arc with that saying. In the beginning, it's like, you're like, my God, like, this guy doesn't care.
Yeah.
And then the second time it says, like, maybe he just, maybe this guy's guilty. Maybe he doesn't care. Then at the end, you're just like, no, this guy this is his way. Mechanism. It's his way of being strong. Yeah, it's like it's not going to help.
That's why, and you're right. And I never really I never analyzed it. It works 3 different ways, and it's awesome. You're right. I would give the edge slightly to the Coen brothers for being so subtle.
Woo!
But Sorkin's awesome, and I love it.
I win. No.
So I guess on its face, like right now, Bridge of Spies is clearly a better film. But I guess the last thing I really want to jump into, and then we'll kind of button things up, because I feel like we could talk about this for hours.
Yes.
Is the comparison, because both of these films have actors in them that are in almost every sequence.
Yeah.
Aside from when the plane crashes in Bridge of Spies, I feel like there's a few moments where Tom Hanks isn't in the film, but in almost every scene of the film, Steve Jobs, Michael Fassbender is in almost every single sequence.
Oh yeah, he definitely is.
Everything from flashbacks to whatever is going on. And Tom Hanks is in, I would say, 90% of Bridge of Spies. Now, my question to you is, do either of them have a leg up on the other for their performances? Are they inherently so different that they can't be compared? Because at some point in the award season, they probably will have to be, and I'm not sure if Fassbender will be nominated for this or something else. So it's worth discussing.
That something else will be Macbeth.
Yes, it will.
That's a good question, because, and I want to say Tom Hanks. I want to, because he nails this character, and it's one of those things where whenever Tom, like we talked about before, when Tom Hanks shows up on screen, you can't take your eyes off because he's so damn charming and also so damn human that you're just like, man, this guy wants to do good, and he's battling within himself and maybe things that he was taught, but he's doing the right thing. And
it's not disingenuous. Like anyone else, you'd be like, is that a shtick? Like, no, it's Tom Hanks.
It's Tom Hanks. But at the same time, sometimes, for instance, if I had an Academy Award right here, like this water bottle was an Academy Award. Good prop. And I was like, is it Tom Hanks or Fassbender? I would say based on the fact that out of not just execution, but out of I guess doing something different, I would have to give it to Fassbender.
Okay.
Because for him, this is very much unlike anything he's ever done. Because you could go to a movie like Shame, or you could go to a movie like 12 Years a Slave.
Particularly.
And where it's not so much the dialogue or anything that they're really relying on, it's about his face. Like he's a very
physical performer.
He has a very fierce look to him where you don't know if he's gonna hit you or if he's like just messing with you.
He's mildly terrifying.
Like a Joe Pesci, if Joe Pesci's voice had a face, it'd be Michael Fassbender. And he has like this very like, do I amuse you? And for me, when I saw Steve Jobs, this was the first time he wasn't looking to kick anybody's ass. He would always say in, but the fact that he had to jog with the dialogue, had to keep up with it, and the fact that he nails it, he nails the awesome moments with the daughter, the awesome moments with what's the character that they always make fun of because they're like, which one?
Oh, Andy.
Andy. He's like, Andy, which one? Like, that was...
I laughed out loud when he was like, he goes, I know what Andy I'm talking about. I need to figure out the system so you guys know without me having to say it. Lost it. I was like, oh my God.
His interactions with those guys was amazing. I think that made him look even better, especially with Kate Winslet.
I'm glad you point that out. I'm going to interrupt you because you said something earlier that the relationship between him and his daughter was arguably the most important. I agree with you there. But to me, the most compelling relationship was between him and Joanna Hoffman.
Yes.
Because it's this weird platonic relationship that you don't see in film. It exists in the world out there. It's real. Guys
Should be done more often.
Guys and girls can be friends and have like existing relationships that work in a professional setting. Yeah. Case in point, the two of us sitting here. Yeah. But in movies, for some reason, there's this weird need to romanticize every like heterosexual interaction ever. Yeah. So I liked their interactions and the way that she was sort of disarming him in a lot of sequences, whether or not he knew it, what I just thought was so compelling. And I think that, and she's the only one that got through to him to even talk to the daughter at the end of the film. Yeah. So I liked their relationship the most, which is one of the reasons why I give him the edge over Hanks as well.
Yeah, and Fassbender did an awesome job. Like, this is very unlike anything he's ever done where he has to worry about... like, I saw an interview with him about the movie after I saw it, and he was just like, what was like preparing? What was the hardest thing to do? He's like remembering the lines.
There's so many lines
because he had so much dialogue. He's walking and talking like every Sorkin character always does. But man,
75% of the lines are his.
The hardest thing, and like this is also, and to note something, as an actor, it's hard to act with lines. It really is, and sometimes you have to rely on the script. Yeah. And you could tell Fassbender relied on the script and also trusted his instincts to be like, let's. Sometimes the smartest move is just to stick to the page.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked so much about his performance, was because a lot of great actors, you get like some lines from, you could watch something like a Bronson with Tom Hardy, and he'll say a line, but it's not about the line. No, this one, it's about the line. It really is. You have to nail the line.
And it's what's being said, what's not being said, but it starts with what you're hearing, and it comes down to Fassbender giving those subtext, and something he does with his eyes, or the last sequence with his daughter, like, he says, when she asks him, why did you lie about naming the computer after me? And he says, I don't know. Like, Sorkin says, like, that is the only time he is 100% honest with the audience. And you could see it in the way Fassbender delivers it. You're just... holy crap, like he's let his guard down. It's such a subtle performance, and I hope it's appreciated.
Yeah. To answer that question is because of credit. He gave no one credit in that movie.
No, and it's an argument worth having, maybe for another discussion, but...
It's hard to assume for that movie. That's the thing. Like, it's one of those movies where it's... Even though it was very intimate, it was also very vague.
Yeah.
Like, there was never, like, they hinted at the dad and all this stuff. Like, we could go into that, like, forever, but at the same time...
The themes were specific.
Yeah.
That's why I liked it, because I didn't care about the characters. I wanted to know why they were all around each other.
Like, this wasn't a Citizen Kane kind of character analysis going through the years at all.
No, not at all.
No, it was... That's the thing, like, when I try to think about it, I'm like, what was this? It wasn't, like, a trip through time. It was pit stops everywhere, where it's like, you make of it what you may, and see what you can do of it. That's the way what I took of it.
It's the conversation of success. Is success being admired for the rest of time, or is it being admired by the one person that matters most? And those are the two, that's the parallels that he has to fight with back and forth. Yeah. The same reason Tom Hanks has to fight with what's right and what's the correct thing to do, like you said.
Just give credit to the apple too, man.
Yeah,
just give it credit, dude.
You can't look back. You cannot look back. Yeah. Which is also another discussion.
Yeah.
But I think we should just tie it up and say that both films are incredible.
Awesome. I wish everyone could see those movies. Please go out and at least experience those movies.
They're going to be in theaters until the Oscar picks are at least discussed. At least until the Golden Globe nominees come out in December, January. I don't know.
Yeah, Golden Globes. Yeah.
Hey, I like the Golden Globes.
It's a fun ceremony, but that's about it.
Exactly. I'd rather go to the Golden Globes. I'd rather win an Oscar, but I'd rather go to the Golden Globes.
I'd rather eat at the Golden Globes.
Have a couple drinks at the Golden Globes, and then...
Like, oh, hey, brother, what's up? You're in the way of my free buffalo dip. All right, dude.
If there's buffalo dip at the Golden Globes...
That's actually a good point. There would never be anything like buffalo dip. It'd be like, who wants celery? Who wants a stick of celery?
See, it's at the Beverly Hills Hilton. It's, like, super fancy.
Yeah. Dinner prepared by, Oscar Beatty.
He's the one presenting the awards like that.
Oscar Beatty, yeah.
On that note...
No, but there's a lot of great movies coming out in November. Please don't let The Martian keep winning.
Yeah, and we're going to definitely... I know for a fact we are going to review Spectre and Spotlight sometime next week.
Yes, we are definitely going to do that. There's going to be great movies coming out the rest of this month.
Absolutely.
Hopefully an Oscar, the Oscar favorite appears sooner rather than later.
We're not sure if it already has. We never know. But, I just have a good feeling about Spotlight. So.
Oh, we'll see. We'll put the spotlight on
Spotlight. Look at that. And on that note, I am JP Leigh.
I'm Adrian Alderete.
And we will see you in the credits roll.